Good evening, dear listener. Tonight, let us step into the kind of story that feels like slipping into cool water on the hottest day of July. The light is soft, the air still smells of lilacs, and the horizon stretches wide and endless, as though it's holding something just for you. Welcome to a world of lake cottages and long shadows, where the past lingers in photographs, and the future is hiding in the glint of sunlight on water. This is the story of One Golden Summer by Carley Fortune. If you find this summary helpful, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Novel Whisper Official, and comment below the title of the novel you'd like us to summarize next. We'll make it happen soon. Now let's begin. The city is relentless. For Alice, each morning has become another step on a treadmill that doesn't stop. One more demand, one more call for her to create, when all she feels is empty. She once believed in her art with the kind of fire that kept her up all night. But lately, the canvas has turned into silence. Her last relationship left her hollow, a bruise in her chest that refuses to fade. And so, when the phone rings, when the news reaches her that her grandmother, Nan, the one constant in her life, has fallen and needs care, Alice doesn't think twice. She packs her bags. She leaves the mess of her city life behind, boarding the train that carries her north toward the place where everything once felt alive. The moment she arrives, the air shifts. The sharp tang of pine and the crisp shimmer of lake water sweep into her lungs. It's as if time folds back on itself, back to when she was young, back to when she believed that summer could save everything. The small hospital room is quiet, except for the steady beep of a monitor. And there lies Nan. Not the unshakable matriarch Alice remembers, but frail, her wrist bandaged, her laughter dimmed by pain. Yet when Nan opens her eyes, they still shine with the mischief of a woman who has always known more than she says. "Don't look at me like that," Nan mutters, forcing a smile. "I'm not finished yet." Alice laughs, though her throat feels tight. She wants to believe it. She wants to believe Nan is invincible. But as she helps her grandmother gather her things, preparing to spend the summer at the lakeside cottage while she heals, Alice feels the edges of her own vulnerability rising. Nan may be recovering from a fall, but Alice is recovering from a life that fell apart. The drive to the cottage feels like a slow exhale. The road curves through green forests, past sleepy gas stations and small-town diners, where the same old men sip coffee every morning. And then, there it is, Kameniskeg Lake, opening like a mirror of glass before them. The cottage stands waiting, its wooden siding weathered by decades of summers, the dock stretching out like an old arm reaching into the water. Memories flash in Alice's mind. Jumps from that very dock, mosquito-bitten nights with fireflies burning like tiny lanterns, her grandmother's voice calling her in from the lake, as dusk spread like watercolor across the sky. Inside, the cottage smells of cedar and old books. Dust drifts in shafts of sunlight. Everything is familiar, and yet it all feels new, as though the walls themselves are holding their breath for what this summer will bring. Alice settles Nan into the old rocker by the window, where she can watch the light ripple across the water. For a moment, peace drapes over the room, but then Alice sees it. A photograph tucked behind a stack of books, edges curling with age. She pulls it free. 3 teenagers, smiling, leaning close, sunburned and careless. In the center, a girl who looks achingly familiar, herself, younger, untouched by the disappointments that came later. On one side, a friend she lost touch with. On the other, a boy. The boy. His hand resting lightly against her shoulder, his smile wide, as if the whole lake belonged to him. The photograph trembles in Alice's hand. It has been years. She told herself she'd forgotten him, forgotten the way one golden summer could change everything. But here, with Nan resting beside her and the lake outside, shimmering as though nothing has changed, Alice knows she hasn't. The memory is alive, waiting, and somewhere, out on that water, so is he. She studies the photograph the way you study a bruise. Gently at first, then with pressure, until the ache answers back. 3 teenagers in a yellow boat near the cattails, mid-laugh, sunburned noses shining like badges of membership. On the left, a girl with a braid thrown over one shoulder. Leela, forever daring Alice to swim farther, climb higher, stay out later. In the middle, Alice herself, hair wild, cheeks lifted by a joy so guileless, she almost doesn't recognize it. And on the right, one hand loose on the outboard tiller, a boy watching her instead of the camera, as if the whole point of the picture is how he can't bring himself to look anywhere else. Light does something in the frame that shouldn't be possible. It scatters off the water in tiny, molten sparks, washing their faces in a gold that makes the moment seem ordained. Alice remembers that light. It had a particular weight at the lake, the kind that sat on her skin and told her everything important would occur between 4 and 8 p.m., when the day tilted and the world let down its guard. She presses the photo to the sill and looks past it to the real lake, to the long pain of evening, to the patient dock. The air smells of resin and cool stone. Nan naps in the rocker, soft breaths, counting slow time. The gentle tick of the kitchen clock is the only firm thing about the moment. Everything else is a slide, one memory letting go into the next, until she's 16 and barefoot again, sprinting over hot boards toward a shout. The first day they met, the yellow boat shaved a slick line across the bay and cut its engine in a spin of quiet that made dragonflies hover, confused. He was tanned to the edge of freckles and wore a ball cap so old the logo had peeled. "Need a tow?" he called, though she was just dangling her feet and daring herself to drop. "I need a boat," she said. "Lucky for you." He grinned and tapped the gunwale. "I'm Charlie." It was the kind of smile you could walk toward. It felt like that, like choosing a direction without needing a map. Lila, who had already named herself the Law of All Summer, grabbed Alice's hand and hauled her into the bow. "Don't make that face," she told Alice under her breath. "It's just a boy in a boat." But it wasn't just a boy. And it wasn't just a boat. It was a threshold. Every afternoon after, the 3 of them threaded Kamaniskeg like they were reading a secret written on the water, down the long fingers of the bays, past the lopsided birch, under the cliffs where birds nested in ledges, the yellow hull skimming sun coins and throwing laughter behind them like wake. They made a game of finding places that felt like firsts. First reef to scrape a skeg, first night swim to send their courage singing up their spines. First bay where a loon rose like a spell from the surface and called something ancient back into their chests. Alice took pictures on a borrowed film camera, cheap plastic with a clack you felt in your palm. She was always chasing the way light slipped around Charlie's jaw when he leaned to pull the cord, the way it through-lit Lila's braid like a fuse, the way it made ordinary afternoons look like the last scenes of a movie you'd watch again as soon as the credits ended. She learned to wait. Let the sky soften, let the boat turn into or out of the glare. Let the world show its looking-glass self. She learned it from the lake. She learned it from him. Nan hums in her sleep and brings the present back like a tide. Alice slides the photograph into the book on the windowsill. One of Nan's old field guides, its cover curling from years of marking wildflowers, and sits on the rug with her knees pulled up. The ache in her chest is not only heartbreak and not only nostalgia. It's the shape of a possible life she once held up to the light and believed would fit. Nan's eyes open, blue and amused, the way they have always opened on Alice, as if she'd caught her granddaughter doing something alive. Found it, did you? Alice looks at the book. Found what? The past. Nan adjusts the throw on her knees, fingers deft even in age. There's a reason we stack those old pictures where the sun can reach them. They need warming up. Otherwise, they misbehave. Alice laughs, surprised by tears. Photographs don't misbehave. All living things do when you freeze them, Nan says. And for a heartbeat, that seems like the truest sentence Alice has ever heard. They eat simple. Toast jam, carrots sliced on the bias, the way Nan always has, as if an angle can make a humble thing elegant. While the kettle hums, Nan asks about the city only once, lightly. Like a test sample, you don't need to run again to know the results. Alice says, "It's loud," and Nan lets the silence close tenderly around that word. "Go sit by the water," Nan says. "Take your ghosts out for some air." The dog boards are gray and kind to the feet. Out on the lake, heat lifts and shimmers. The day is easing towards that hour when the sky lets everything golden leak out. A minnow flares and disappears. Somewhere far off, a canoe knocks hollowly against a mooring. She looks down and sees herself as a series of summers, layered like film positives. Young and fearless, older and trying to be. This version now, unsure she can bear joy without bracing for the breaking that comes after. She leans back on her arms and watches a cloud float over a spruce and decides the cloud is in love with the tree and can't say so. The second summer was the one that fixed the story of them into something that felt inevitable. After that first season of mapping, they were cartographers of each other, learning the shallow spots, the sudden depths, the places you could beach on purpose and pretend you hadn't. Charlie taught Alice how to read water, how to tell from the chop how the wind was thinking. Lila taught her how to jump wrong a few times on purpose so you could learn to jump right without fear. Together they learned to press a moment until it squeaked, to find out how strong the hush could feel when you were side by side and not saying everything. There were things Alice never told them, even then. How the quiet, after a shutter, made her ears ring with wanting. how she planned pictures in the middle of the night. Compositions floating against the dark of the ceiling like constellations. How the boat turned her into something steadier than she had ever felt on land. There were things Charlie never told either. How he sometimes looked at the horizon like a person who knew a storm was coming, whether or not the sky admitted it. The three of them filled in what they could, trusted the rest, and called it summer. The photo on the sill is from a day she can place by the tilt of the sun. They were near the shoals, the water high enough that rocks wore silk instead of teeth. Lila had just told a joke about aging, 16 and convinced that 17 would be ancient. And Charlie had turned to laugh and forgot the camera was there. That's what the captured look is. Surprise at being seen mid-joy instead of mid-mask. Alice hung that print in her dorm years later, then in her first apartment, then took it down when the shape of her life stopped matching the light in it. Now here it is again. Warmer for Nan's window, a loon calls. Evening leans closer. The lake breathes that gilded breath that makes even the people who live here year-round look up. Somewhere, a motor coughs awake, far enough that the sound has to hop twice to reach the shore. Alice feels the smallest, reckless lift inside her ribs. The flicker of a signal received from an old frequency. She tells herself there are 1,000 yellow boats. Boys turn into men and buy fiberglass. Sounds carry. She tells herself stories to keep from standing up too fast, from craning her neck, from believing. Instead, she watches the light. It does the private magic it has always done here, laying gold on ordinary surfaces, tricking the heart into thinking time is elastic. She has the photo. She has the dock. She has Nan in the cottage, awake now, probably rolling her eyes at the kettle and muttering about how the world insists on boiling over. Alice lets the motor's echo go back where it came from and presses her palms flat on the warm wood of the dock, as if she can ground herself through century-old boards. Behind her, the screen door whispers and sighs shut. "Tea's on," Nan says, then softer. "You know the Florek cottage kept their place up all these years. Folks say the boys still come when summer's right." Alice turns, heart stumbling politely, as if not to make a scene. "Do they? I wouldn't be surprised." Nan's gaze flicks towards the far side of the bay, where roofs glint between pines. Everything that's meant to meet again finds an excuse to pass by the same water. The kettle clicks, the motor sound dissolves into waves. Alice steps off the dock and back toward the cottage with the photograph bright behind her eyelids, warm from the sun and unruly with its own life. It haunts her kindly. It haunts her the way a door ajar does, inviting, patient, waiting for her hand. Morning slides into the cottage through lace curtains, soft and angled, smelling of dew and toast. Alice wakes to the creak of floorboards and the faint hiss of Nan's kettle. The sounds that once meant comfort, but now carry a new edge of fragility. She rises quietly, the old wooden steps cool beneath her feet, and finds Nan at the counter, her left arm bound in its bandage, her right hand determinedly spreading jam onto toast with the kind of precision only grandmothers muster when they're hiding pain. "Sit," Nan orders, though her voice is gentle. "I'm not dead yet." Alice laughs, but she sees it. The way Nan's fingers tremble as she sets the knife down. The way her shoulders tighten when she reaches too far for the teacups. Her grandmother, who once seemed unbreakable, now moves like glass, in need of careful carrying. Over breakfast, Nan asks about Alice's camera. "You bring it?" Alice shakes her head. "Not this time." A pause. Nan eyes her with something sharp and knowing. "That's a shame. You always saw what others missed." Light doesn't wait forever, you know. The words land heavier than they should. Alice stirs her tea, staring at the swirl of color dissolving into gold, thinking of all the frames she's left empty, of the silence where her art should be. Later, she follows Nan outside, carrying a blanket and a lawn chair. They walk slowly, each step deliberate, the gravel crunching under their feet. Alice steadies her grandmother when the path dips. It's strange how roles invert. Once, Nan's hand was the anchor pulling Alice forward, teaching her to swim, teaching her to dare. Now Alice becomes the anchor, holding Nan upright against the soft rebellion of her bones. They settle near the water's edge. The lake is calm, dragonflies darting like flecks of emerald glass above its surface. Nan sighs, closing her eyes, and the sound is not of defeat, but of surrender. To the summer, to the rhythm of healing, to the knowledge that life insists on moving even when bodies slow. "Do you remember the year we painted this cottage?" Nan asks suddenly, lips twitching in amusement. Alice smiles. "Barely. You made me hold the ladder while you climbed, and I swore you'd fall, and I didn't." Nan says proudly, "Stubbornness is the best glue for bones." Alice shakes her head, laughter tumbling from her chest before it catches on the truth. Stubbornness isn't always enough. She watches the way Nan's eyes cloud for a moment, a shadow crossing her gaze before she forces it away with a sip of tea. The fragility of this summer is undeniable. It presses into Alice, making her vow silently that she won't take a single hour for granted. Afternoon stretches into a haze of cicadas and rustling leaves. Nan dozes in her chair, book half open on her lap, lips forming half smiles as though she's reading even in her dreams. Alice lingers on the porch steps, watching the way light paints the lake, how it slides into amber, then deepens into bronze as the sun leans west. She thinks about the photograph again, about the boy's tilted smile, about the way Nan seemed unsurprised when she mentioned the Florek name. She wonders if Nan knows more than she lets on. The quiet is interrupted by a small slip. Nan's teacup wobbling, spilling a thin trickle across the chair's armrest. Alice is there in an instant, steadying her, dabbing gently with the cloth. Nan scowls, embarrassed. "See? This is why I shouldn't be let out of bed." "Don't say that," Alice murmurs. "This is good. You need the lake as much as it needs you." Nan studies her for a long moment, then sighs. "Maybe. But you, Alice, you need it more. You came back carrying more weight than I ever did." Let the water take some of it. The words burrow deep, because they're true. Alice has been carrying too much. Failed love, failed art, the nagging sense she's failed herself. She looks at Nan, at the fierce determination flickering behind tired eyes, and realizes her grandmother is still teaching her, even now. Evening comes. The sky turns velvet purple, and stars prick through in cautious sparks. Nan insists on staying out until the loons call, her chin lifted, as though listening for something older than both of them. Alice wraps a blanket around her shoulders, and for a moment they sit in silence. 2 generations bound by blood and memory, watching the lake breathe in and out under the moon. Alice feels it then. The fragile strength of her grandmother, the weight of care and love, and the quiet, steady truth that this summer will change everything. Not just for Nan, but for her. And though she doesn't know it yet, the lake is about to send her another ghost from the past. This time not captured in a photograph, but alive, flesh and blood, and closer than she dares imagine. They begin with the windows. Nan insists the cottage must breathe, so Alice unlatches each sticky frame and shoulders them open, one by one, until the rooms fill with cedar and sun-warmed air. Curtains lift and drop like slow tides. Dust shakes loose in soft galaxies. On the porch, the wicker creaks in a language it learned from 100 summers, and the screen door sighs as if it too remembers what it's for. They work like this all morning. Alice moving the heavy things, Nan presiding from a chair like a capable admiral, issuing orders with a fingertip. Quilts go down to the line, bowls of vinegar sit on the counter to chase out cottage must. And the old radio, its dial stubborn but game, gives up a station that plays songs with harmonies like porch light. Front closet, Nan says, as if she already knows what's waiting there. Shoebox. Alice kneels among life jackets and badminton rackets with broken strings and finds it pushed to the back. A battered blue box, rubber-banded twice, the top softened to velvet by years of hands. Inside are photographs, of course, but also a camera, solid in the palm, its leather peel flaking at the corners. The weight of it lands in her hand the way an old habit drops back into your bones, a Minolta near enough to the one she learned on that her fingers find the shutter before her mind can name it. "You kept this?" she asks. "You left it," Nan counters, smug. "Thought you might come back for it when you decided you were still yourself." Alice tests the advance lever. It grinds, then it yields. Somewhere in her, something yields too. An ache loosening like a muscle that finally stretches. "I don't have film." "Then we'll go to town." Town is a 10-minute ribbon of road along water like polished slate. In daylight, the lake looks less like magic and more like muscle. Moving, working, carrying fish and boats and secrets beneath a surface so composed you'd never guess at the complicity of its depths. The general store still smells of sunscreen and penny candy. Behind the counter is a woman who knows Nan by her maiden name and her chili recipe. And the summer she beat the mayor at canoe races. They collect gauze and a new brace for Nan's wrist, plus a handful of things Alice doesn't strictly need. Lifesavers, a postcard for no one, a candle that swears it smells like rain. The spinner rack by the register holds disposable cameras, 2 brands, plastic transparent yellow. Alice takes one, then takes another. "Insurance?" the woman asks. "Faith," Nan answers, and the woman nods like it's a currency she still accepts. At the marina, they fill a jerry can for the old tinny Nan, swears she'll let Alice use once the wind remembers manners. Across the dock, a mechanic rolls a yellow hull out of a boathouse. sunlight burning along its curve. Alice's breath stutters, but it's not a speedboat, just a canoe with a bright belly. Still, the color ghosts against her eyelids long after they pull away. The exact hue of a summer she can't stop touching in her head. Back at the cottage, afternoon settles like a cat. They move slower, each task swaddled in pauses. Nan teaches Alice, again, always, the cottage math of small satisfactions, the right way to sand a splintered stair, how to set a bowl under the slow leak until you remember to fix it, the way to stack kindling so it forgives you on a damp morning. Alice bandages Nan's wrist fresh and ties her hair into a scarf. Prince of Strawberries faded to ghost pink. "You make me look like a farm criminal," Nan declares, delighted. They eat tomatoes on thick bread with salt that crunches and proves the point of teeth. Sweet corn shaved into a skillet with butter until it gilds itself. A blue heron tacks across the bay on those improbable wings. Somewhere up the road, a truck door slams. Two kids whoop. A dog negotiates with a squirrel. The cottage and everything around it seem full of sentences, spoken in a dialect you can only hear if you sit still. So they sit. "Make me a list," Nan says around a forkful of corn. "Groceries? Summer," Nan says simply. "Not accomplishments, appetites." Alice watches the lake while the word unfurls inside her. "Like what?" "Like..." Nan waves the fork, kernel of yellow, nearly flying. "Hang laundry with your hands instead of your head. Burn your tongue on the first s'more. Find out if the board still remembers you. Let someone else steer and don't flinch. Sleep outside and learn the names of at least 3 stars that aren't the famous ones." That sort of thing. "You just made that up." "I've had practice," Nan says. "And you've had practice making lists that hurt you when you don't complete them. Try a list that saves you." They write at the picnic table, the paper held by a chipped mug and a bottle of bug spray. Alice's handwriting stumbles and then regains its gait. The items come in small, human sizes. Swim at dusk. Take 2 pictures that don't pretend. Call Lila. The last one hangs there, a dare inside a dare, but they let it stay. Wind lifts the page. Nan flattens it with her palm as if blessing a child who insists on running. By late afternoon, Nan insists on her therapy. Ankles in the shallows, pants rolled, a hand on Alice's shoulder for balance. The water is shock and then silk. Nan's face, turned to the sun, unwinds 10 years. "You see?" she says to the horizon. "Pain is a miser. The lake has better manners. They sit until the skin on their feet looks like maps." Alice takes the disposable camera down from the porch rail and lifts it almost shyly. The viewfinder narrows the world to a rectangle, and within that small certainty, the lake hums with possibilities. She frames Nan's profile against the flare of light. Click. She frames the clothesline, shirts and quilts and towels translated into prayer flags. Click. The cheap camera gives its plastic toy whir, and still, her heart allows itself a foolish thud of recognition. She lowers it and breathes as if she's been underwater. "Good," Nan says, as if she can hear the hinge inside Alice re-oil itself. Again, evening moves in. The lake does its old trick with the gold, laying it down as if declaring amnesty from all daytime sins. A pair of teenagers paddles past in a canoe. The girl in front trailing fingers that draw brief silver glyphs behind them. Someone out there strums a guitar. Not a full song, just the ghost of chords the fingers remember. Alice stands on the dock and lets her weight teach the boards what year it is. The disposable camera bumps her hip like a kid asking to be carried. She brings out Nan's old photo albums and a tin of buttons shaped like berries and anchors and moons. They page through summers gone, Nan laughing with women in pedal pushers. A man Alice knows has a story and a smile. A line of children with fresh dirt on their shins and pride on their faces. You and your boys, Alice teases when the Florex surname appears in a scroll beneath a snapshot of a canoe race finish. 3 grins wide as the bay. They were good to everyone, Nan says, and turns the page with such careful fingers. You'd think memory is a lace doily. She'll ruin if she hurries. When the first star pricks out and the loons tune their throats, they light the old lantern on the table and let moths write frantic poems in its halo. Nan dozes with her cheek in her palm. Alice sits with the quiet animal of the camera in her lap and the lake in her lungs. The outline of the far shore softens, and the cottages there bloom their first domestic constellations. Kitchen lights, porch bulbs, someone's television flickering secrets onto a wall. A motor coughs awake somewhere deeper in the bay, the sound skipping towards them over the water. It's nothing, it's everything. It doesn't matter. It matters. Alice doesn't stand. She lets the noise pass through her like a memory that knows not to stop. Still, the night collects the echo and sets it down carefully on the windowsill beside the photograph from the other day, as if the two sounds, thens and nows, like to live together. Before bed, Nan pauses in the doorway and looks back at the dock, at Alice, at the wide, inked-in lake. Tomorrow, she says. Let the light find you early. Alice nods, though she doesn't know what that will ask of her. She turns the camera over in her hands one last time, checks the tiny numbers in their little window, and sets it on the table, with a care that borders on reverence. The cottage settles around them, boards ticking, pine breathing. In the bedroom, the sheets smell like line-dried sun. She closes her eyes and sees the yellow flare of a hull that may not exist anymore, and the steady blue of her grandmother's gaze. And the space between those colors is the size of the summer she needs. Morning will come, the lake will perform its daily miracle. And somewhere beyond the spruce and the generous dark, a path is already turning toward them, bright as enamel, the length of a boat. The morning is new glass, clear enough that even the minnows look like silver stitches in the shallows. Alice sits on the edge of the dock, toes breaking ripples into rings, the disposable camera tucked uselessly in her lap. She's almost convinced herself that the sound last night was a trick of wind, that yellow belongs only to memory. When the water suddenly parts far out in the bay, a hum rises, low at first, then full-throated, the kind that vibrates against your ribs before your ears name it. Across the sheet of water, a streak of gold cuts its own horizon. A speedboat, hull painted the same impossible yellow as the photograph. Sunlight glancing off its sides like struck brass. Alice's breath sticks. The boat banks once, spray throwing diamonds, then settles into a steady glide. The driver leans forward, cap pulled low, the posture impossibly familiar. A second later, he turns, just enough that the sun catches his profile. Strong jaw, easy grin. Older now, sharper at the edges, but there's no mistaking it. Charlie Florrick. The boy from the photo, the boy from every lake-drenched memory that has been haunting her since she arrived, is not a ghost at all. Alice's heart stumbles. The years collapse with the distance until she is 16 again. Hair wild in the wind, laughing too hard to notice how deep she was already falling. She wants to stand, to wave, to run, but her body refuses. Instead, she clutches the camera, plastic biting into her palm, as the boat arcs closer. The engine cuts. Silence pours in, broken only by the slap of small waves against the dock. Charlie's eyes lift, and for the first time in more than a decade, they find hers. Recognition flares. Surprise first, then something softer, warmer, almost dangerous in its tenderness. "Well," he calls, voice carrying over the water. "Didn't expect to see a ghost this morning." Alice swallows hard, torn between a laugh and a cry. "Funny," she manages, her voice thin. I was about to say the same. The boat nudges up to the dock, yellow hull glowing like it remembers everything too. He hops out with an ease that hasn't changed, rope in his hands, sun on his shoulders. Up close, she can see the lines time has drawn at the corners of his smile, the roughness of hands that still know engines and oars. But his eyes are the same, a color that shifts between green and blue depending on what the sky is willing to give. For a moment, neither speaks. The air hangs heavy with cicadas and unsaid words. Then Nan's voice breaks it, calling from the porch, amused and unsurprised. "Well, if it isn't one of the Florrick boys. Took you long enough to stop by." Charlie grins wider, glancing toward the cottage. "Nan, still sharp as ever, I see." Alice feels the ground tilt beneath her, the past rising to meet the present with the smell of gasoline and lake water. The boy in yellow is here again, not framed, not frozen, real, smiling, impossibly close. And though she doesn't know what this meeting will unravel, she can already sense it. This summer is no longer hers alone. The air feels younger that afternoon, as if the lake has decided to rewind itself. Charlie stays after Nan shoos him inside for lemonade, claiming she can't let a Florrick boy escape without at least one glass. He leans against the porch railing, his arm catching the sunlight, in a way that seems designed to remind Alice of everything she once swore she'd forgotten. They trade small talk at first. Safe, ordinary questions about family, work, how long they're staying. But beneath each word lies a current pulling stronger than either of them acknowledges. Alice answers lightly, careful not to reveal how fragile she feels, while Charlie's eyes linger a beat too long, as though he can still read her the way he once did. Nan, sly as ever, watches them both. "Alice has a list," she announces suddenly, eyes glinting. Alice startles. "Nan, a summer bucket list." Her grandmother continues, unbothered by Alice's glare. "Things she wants to do before the season's done. She hasn't told me half of them, but I know the paper exists." Charlie's smile blooms, mischievous. "Oh, that sounds promising. What's on it?" Alice flushes, clutching her lemonade glass. The list was supposed to be private, a half-hearted experiment at Nan's urging. Swim at dusk. Take 2 pictures that don't pretend. Call Lila. Nothing spectacular, just little promises to herself, crumbs of a way back to joy. I'm not telling, she mutters. That means it's good, Charlie says, grinning. Tell you what, let me see the list, and I'll help you check things off. Deal? The words land with dangerous ease, tugging at something inside her that has been dormant for too long. Before she can answer, Nan interrupts, voice laced with smug satisfaction. She'll let you. She needs someone to make sure she doesn't cheat. That night, Alice sits on the dock alone, list in hand. She considers tearing it up or hiding it deeper in the pages of her notebook. But the lake whispers softly, the same way it did when she was 16, daring her to believe in more than survival. Slowly, she folds the paper and tucks it into her pocket. The next morning, Charlie is waiting by the dock with that same yellow boat, idling like a restless dog. So, he calls, "What's first?" Alice hesitates, then pulls the crumpled list from her pocket. The ink has smudged, but the words still glow with possibility. "Swim at dusk," she reads aloud. Charlie's grin is immediate. Perfect. Tonight, the day spins forward like it used to, filled with small adventures. He coaxes her onto the boat, laughter rising as they skim across the water, wind tangling her hair into a wild halo. She feels herself loosening, laughing at his dumb jokes, snapping a photo when he isn't looking. The disposable camera clicks, capturing something real, something unposed. By dusk, they're waist-deep in the lake, the water warm and golden, the sky painted in bruised pinks and oranges. Alice feels the list tugging in her pocket, soaked but alive. Charlie splashes her, reckless and boyish, and for the first time in years, she splashes back, laughing until her sides ache. She closes her eyes, floating, and lets the water hold her. For a moment, she's both the girl in the photograph and the woman who thought she'd lost her way. The list is no longer just paper. It's a doorway. And Charlie is standing on the other side, waiting. When she finally climbs onto the dock, dripping and breathless, Nan is waiting with a blanket and a knowing smile. "One down," she says softly. Alice glances at Charlie, who's shaking water from his hair, grinning like the summer has only just begun. Her heart stirs, reckless and terrified. One down, yes, but how many more to go, and what will it cost her to follow through? The lake wakes loud with light. Sun spears the water, turning it into quicksilver, and already Charlie is at the dock, calling her name like no time has passed at all. Alice almost pretends she doesn't hear him. Part of her still clings to the safety of distance. But the spark in his voice is magnetic, pulling her before she can resist. She grabs her camera, a towel, and joins him and the yellow boat, where the air smells of gasoline, pine, and something rawer. Possibility. They start with speed. The boat slices the bay, throwing spray into rainbows. Alice clutches the rail at first, laughing despite herself, hair plastered to her face. Charlie leans into the wheel, one hand steady, the other raised in a salute to the wind. "Still afraid of a little water?" He shouts over the engine. She shouts back, "Still showing off?" And that's how it goes. Banter like old times, playful and edged with a warmth she hasn't let herself feel in years. He coaxes her onto the jet ski tied at the marina, teasing her until she agrees. The ride is chaos, her scream swallowed by the roar, but the thrill shivers through her like new electricity. They fall off once, tumbling into the lake with a splash that echoes off the cliffs. Surfacing, Alice can't stop laughing, water streaming down her cheeks until it feels like tears. Later, when the afternoon burns lazy, they drift in the boat with the engine cut. The lake holds them steady, and dragonflies weave bright knots around the hull. Charlie leans back, bare feet propped on the gunwale. "You know, I thought I imagined half of it," he says. "Those summers. You, with that camera. The way you always looked at the world, like it was about to reveal a secret if you clicked fast enough." Alice's throat tightens. And did it? His eyes meet hers, sunlight sharp in them. Sometimes the silence between them isn't empty. It's full, buzzing like the air before a storm. She looks away, snapping the camera toward the sky, catching gulls against the blue. The shutter click is too loud in the stillness, but it anchors her. Evenings turn into rituals. They swim beneath stars, the water cool velvet against their skin. They roast marshmallows at Nan's insistence, Charlie coaxing flames higher just to make her roll her eyes. He teaches her how to balance on the paddleboard, and she teaches him how to frame a picture so it tells a story. Each lesson blurs into laughter, into shared glances that last a beat too long. But beneath the joy is something more fragile, something both of them feel, but won't name. Alice senses it in the way Charlie watches her, when he thinks she isn't looking, in the softness that slips into his voice when he talks about his family, in the shadows that sometimes cross his face like passing clouds. She wonders what he hides, what he fears, and whether he sees the same in her. One night, after a swim that leaves them breathless, they sit wrapped in towels on the dock. The lake reflects the moon so perfectly it feels like they're floating in the sky itself. "Bucket list looks good on you," Charlie says, quiet. Alice hugs her knees, the list folded in her pocket, damp with lake water and time. "It feels good," she admits. "Like I'm—" She stops searching. "Like I'm waking up." Charlie leans closer, his shoulder brushing hers. The warmth is subtle, but it surges through her as if she's touched fire. "Then don't go back to sleep," he whispers. The words linger long after he leaves that night, long after Nan has gone to bed, and the dock creaks only under Alice's heartbeat. She knows now. This isn't just nostalgia. It's not just friendship stitched back together by accident. It's chemistry, dangerous and undeniable, blooming again under the same sun that lit them once before. And though the water looks calm, Alice can feel it. Beneath the surface, currents are shifting, pulling her somewhere she both longs for and fears. The next morning arrives soft, with fog laying low across the lake like a blanket, reluctant to leave the night behind. Alice pads into the kitchen, expecting quiet, but instead finds Nan already at the table, cheeks flushed with laughter. Across from her sits Charlie, a mug in his hand, telling a story with broad gestures that make the old sugar jar tremble. Nan catches Alice's surprised face and waves her in. "He was just explaining how to rescue a canoe from sinking with Nothing but duct tape and a frying pan. Charlie grins. It worked, mostly. Alice shakes her head, but something loosens in her chest at the sight. Nan leaning forward, amused, alive. Charlie laughing in a way that fills the small kitchen like it's the most natural thing in the world. For years, she's carried the weight of caring for Nan alone, worrying about her health and loneliness. To see her grandmother sparkling like this, drawn out by someone else, feels like a gift. Alice didn't know Charlie was allowed on helping with chores. Nan, delighted to have a strong back at her disposal, puts him to work hauling firewood, hammering loose nails on the porch, even untangling the stubborn clothesline. He does it all with mock complaints, throwing exaggerated groans into the air. But Alice notices how he never once refuses. His presence turns the work into something lighter, even playful. Later, when Nan naps in her chair, Charlie lingers on the porch with Alice. "She's incredible," he says quietly, glancing at her through the screen door. "I don't think I've ever seen anyone laugh that hard about a frying pan." Alice smiles, her heart tugging. She's always been like that. Fierce, funny, unstoppable. Seeing her this way again, it means everything. Charlie studies her, his gaze softer now. "You mean she means everything?" The words strike home, and Alice looks away, unwilling to admit how much truth sits in them. Nan has been her anchor, her constant, her safe harbor. The thought of losing her one day is a wound Alice doesn't dare touch. That evening, Nan insists they all eat outside. The three of them sit around the picnic table, fireflies beginning to blink among the trees. Charlie makes Nan laugh until she's wiping tears from her eyes, and Alice catches herself smiling so wide it almost hurts. She realizes this isn't just about her and Charlie. It's about the way he bridges the gap between past and present, about how easily he slips into the rhythm of her family, like he never left. When Nan heads to bed, leaving them under the stars, Alice feels the quiet wrap around them like a shawl. Charlie stretches his legs, leaning back, eyes on the dark glitter of the water. "She likes me," he says simply, with a boyish pride that makes Alice laugh. She likes anyone who makes her laugh. "Then I'll keep doing that," he says, glancing sideways at her. His grin softens into something else, something quieter, meant only for her. Alice looks down at the table, fingers tracing the grain of the wood. She feels the truth rising in her chest. Charlie isn't just becoming a part of her summer. He's becoming a thread that binds her and Nan together, weaving laughter and warmth into days that might otherwise have been heavy with fragility. And she can't help but wonder, if he can do this for Nan, what might he still be able to do for her? Rain arrives like a decision. It rolls off the lake in a slate curtain and hushes the world until even the trees seem to listen. Nan declares it a stay-put day and claims the rocker by the window with a blanket on her knees and a mystery novel tucked under one hand. Alice and Charlie move around each other in the small kitchen, making grilled cheese the exact way Nan taught her. Butter to the edges, pan low, patience like a seasoning. The cottage grows warm with toast and coffee and the steady hum of rain on the roof. The closeness changes the air. Without the lake drawing them outward, they turn toward interiors. Rooms, cupboards, the quiet places people avoid when the weather is fine. Charlie opens the top cabinet and finds the old board games, their boxes soft at the corners. "You ever beat Nan at cribbage?" he asks, mouth tilting. "Once?" Alice lies, and Nan snorts from the rocker without looking up. They play anyway, counting out loud, pegging, their laughter knocking lightly against the windows, as if asking the rain to come in. When the sandwiches are gone and the game has ended in a draw that isn't a draw, Nan announces she won on style. Charlie drifts toward the photographs on the mantel. He lifts the yellowed one of the canoe races. "We were so sure we were untouchable," he says softly, half to himself. Like nothing could happen so long as we could get across water faster than anyone else. Alice watches him and sees the boy and the man at once. "What did happen?" she asks. He replaces the photo. The rain answers for a beat, a shimmer of white noise, before he does. "Life," he says. "Boats still go fast. That's the easy part. Nan naps." The house exhales. Alice and Charlie carry their coffee to the porch, where the screen door frames the rain like a beaded curtain. For a long time, they just sit, rain threading between words, the lake a charcoal sheet, the world done temporarily in black and white. The quiet isn't empty. It's the kind that reaches in and turns a dimmer switch on the guard you keep up. "Can I ask you something?" Charlie says finally, not looking at her. "You just did," Alice says, too quickly. And he smiles the way he always used to when she was being defensive. "Why did you stop taking real pictures?" She blinks. "I didn't." "Yeah," he says gently. "You did?" She looks at her hands, fingers inked faintly from her last attempt at a list. The small scar on her knuckle from a darkroom mishap. These mute witnesses. "The city got loud," she says, and hates how thin it sounds. The truth is heavier. She tries again. "I forgot what I was looking for. I chased jobs that wanted my eyes, but not my heart. After a while, I couldn't tell the difference between work and seeing." He nods, as if that kind of forgetting is familiar. "I know that one. Do you?" she asks, sharper than she means. He doesn't flinch. "You ever fix an engine that will run just long enough to get a man to his promises, and then die on you like it was never alive? You take money, you tell yourself you've done good work, you watch him go, and it's fine. Until it's your brother." His jaw works. "I thought I could hold everything together with grit and wrenches. It turns out some things want to come apart." "Your brother," she says softly. He breathes through it, steady but not undefeated. "We took over the marina after Dad's heart scare. Thought we could carry it together. He wanted different things than me. Bigger. We got into a rhythm where the only way to talk was to argue. We pretended it meant we cared. Then one day he left for a job he swore would be temporary. His laugh is small and humorless. Temporary is permanent in disguise. Alice thinks of Lila and the phone calls she didn't make. The apology she rehearsed and never delivered until it calcified into silence. "Do you talk now?" "Sometimes," he says, "when we can find the same shore." He glances at her. "The summer I left here, I told myself I'd write you. I told myself it was better to go without making a mess. That I was saving us both from this." He gestures vaguely at the space between them, the cottage, The decades, the rain that can't be dodged. Turns out, not writing can make a mess, just as well as writing the wrong thing. Her throat tightens. You know what I did? I printed the photo of us and stuck it above my desk and told myself it was inspiration, not nostalgia. Then I packed it away when it started to hurt. I thought if I pretended I didn't care, I'd be free. She lifts her face to the rain smell. It's remarkable how much pretending costs. Expensive, he agrees, and they both huff out a laugh that sounds exhausted and alive. The rain thins, the lake shows more color. Nan stirs in the rocker and murmurs something about soup. Alice and Charlie move to the kitchen like they've always cooked together. They chop and stir. Steam lifts the smell of thyme and potatoes into the cottage rafters. Their shoulders bump. It's not careful. It's not careless. It's a living contact. The kind that says, we are here, in this room, in this hour. When the soup is done and Nan pronounces it perfect. Let the record show I taught you both everything. Charlie's eyes meet Alice's over the rim of his spoon. There's gratitude there. There's hunger. There's fear. Later, the rain has spent itself, and the world glows as if washed. They walk the path that runs behind the cottage, where the pines hold beads of water in their needles, like promises, and the ground springs underfoot. The air is new minted. They don't speak for a while. It feels holy not to. By the time they reach the bluff, the lake is a sheet of hammered tin, sun trying to punch through tatters of cloud. From here you can see the line of Floric boathouses, their roofs low and useful, the docks like number lines. Charlie shoves his hands into his pockets. Sometimes I think I'm just parts, he says. Useful, replaceable, not art. Alice studies him. The line of his mouth fights for levity and loses. You're not a carburetor, Charlie, he snorts. Tell that to my invoices. She steps closer. Rain-dark earth soft under her shoes. You're the person who knows how to fold a day, so it's big enough to hold other people. You're the one who remembers the jokes that make Nan forget she hurts. You're the man who still turns the boat toward the best light, even when no one's taking the picture. Her voice shakes, so she steadies it. That looks like art from here. The silence that follows is a door left open. He walks through it. I was so afraid, he says, that if I looked at you long enough again, I'd want to leave everything that isn't you. He shakes his head. And I can't. Not now. Not with the marina. A beat. Not with Nan. His eyes flick to her. Apology there before guilt. I don't mean that as a chain. I mean it as gravity. She hears the part he doesn't say. And what if you leave when summer ends? The same question is picking at her, a small animal at a fence. She answers the only way that isn't cowardice. I don't know what happens after August, she says. I don't know if my work will be there when I go back to it, or if I'm supposed to stay, or if I'm supposed to choose between the person I was and the person I want to be. I only know the light here tells the truth, and I'm tired of lying to it. The wind lifts the wet scent of pine and a clean metallic tang off the lake. He reaches for her hand like a man testing a wire for current. Their fingers fit, damp and warm and unsure. The touch isn't an answer. It's a vow of presence. We're here now, Back at the cottage, Nan is awake and mercifully uninterested in the weather of their faces. She has them replace a stubborn screen, move a chair, argue about the precise number of minutes a pie should spend cooling before it can be honestly eaten. All that domestic talk builds an eddy around them, where something tender can grow without being stared at. At dusk, the clouds peel back fully, and the sky performs its apology. Lavish, gold poured edge to edge. The three of them carry bowls to the porch steps and eat in companionable quiet. When the loons call, it vibrates in Alice's bones as if naming something newly born. Later, when Nan goes in, when the first porch lights stitch the far shore, Charlie stops at the foot of the dock. "I owe you a real apology," he says, "for leaving like I did. For pretending wanting less would keep me safe," she swallows. "I owe you one, too. For pretending wanting more made me immune." She searches his face. "We can stop pretending now." He nods, eyes bright in the last light. "Okay." He squeezes her hand. It's an answer and not an answer, exactly right for this night. Okay. The lake laps softly at the posts. The sky holds its breath. The masks they've worn, competence, detachment, easy jokes, hang briefly between them, seen, acknowledged, then float off on the evening breeze, like old receipts you don't need anymore. They aren't finished. They aren't safe. But they are seen. Behind them, the cottage lamp throws a square of honey on the grass. Ahead, the water keeps its old promise. It will hold what they give it. For now, they give it this. Truth spoken aloud, a touch, a shared horizon. The rest will come. In the distance, thunder rumbles again. Not threat, but reminder. Even golden summers have weather. Morning light arrives, too bright, too clear. One of those days where the lake seems to mock you with its perfection. Alice sits at the edge of the dock, list folded tight in her pocket, but her chest feels heavier than the calm water before her. The night before had opened doors she hadn't dared unlock in years. But now, with sunlight laying itself across everything like truth, fear creeps in. Charlie joins her, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. He doesn't sit right away. He paces the boards like someone who has too much in his head. "Couldn't sleep," he admits, voice quiet. "Kept thinking. Maybe we shouldn't be doing this." Alice looks up, startled. "Doing what?" His gaze catches hers, sharp and tired. "Pretending this is simple, that we can just laugh, swim, kiss the past into behaving, and walk away whole when summer ends." The words land between them like stones. Alice's throat tightens. "I wasn't pretending," she says softly. "I know." He scrubs a hand through his hair, frustrated. "That's what scares me." The air shifts, suddenly tense, full of unsaid things. Alice feels the fragile world they've been building tilt, as if one wrong word could send it crashing. She rises, anger flickering under her skin. "So what then, Charlie? You think this is a mistake?" "No," he says quickly, too quickly. His voice roughens. "I think it's dangerous. For you. For me. For everything we've worked to keep standing." She wants to shout that she doesn't care, that she's already drowning in this. But the look in his eyes stops her. There's fear there, Yes, but also longing so raw it hurts to see. He isn't pushing her away because he doesn't want her. He's pushing because he does. Nan senses the tension at breakfast. She hums louder than usual, fusses over toast, tries to distract with talk of weather and neighbors. But Alice and Charlie speak little. Each glance, a conversation they can't risk aloud. By afternoon, the wait is unbearable. They take the boat out anyway. Habit, ritual, or maybe hope. The lake is alive with light, but neither of them laughs the way they used to. Alice snaps a picture of the horizon, then sets the camera down, hollow. Charlie stares in silence. Finally, he cuts the engine and lets them drift. The stillness is deafening. "I'm sorry," he says, voice breaking the air. "I didn't mean to hurt you. When I look at you, I see the girl who believed in forever. And I see the woman who's been hurt enough times that the word scares her. I don't want to be another reason you give up." Alice swallows hard, tears stinging. "And what if you're the reason I remember how to believe?" The words hang there, fragile as glass. His hand hovers near hers on the rail, close but not touching. Both of them aching with the nearness. That night, she lies awake, the list burning in her pocket, the sound of Charlie's voice echoing in her head. Nan sleeps peacefully in the next room. The lake sighs beyond the window, but Alice cannot rest. The tension is too much. Joy and fear, tenderness and distance, everything colliding at once. She knows this summer is a gift. But she also knows gifts can break if held too tightly. And as she stares at the ceiling, she wonders if she and Charlie are strong enough to survive both the laughter and the silence. The fracture begins small, like a hairline crack in glass, invisible until the pressure finds it. For days, Alice and Charlie dance around each other. Laughter edged with tension. Silences weighted with everything they don't say. The lake keeps shining, the sun keeps gilding the afternoons. But beneath it all is a storm, waiting for its cue. It comes one evening when the air feels thick and restless. Thunder muttering far beyond the horizon. Nan has gone to bed early, weary from a long walk, leaving Alice and Charlie alone on the porch. They sit across from each other, lantern light painting their faces in gold and shadow. Charlie stares at the water. "You still haven't called her, have you?" Alice stiffens. "Who?" "Lila." His voice is calm, but the way his jaw tightens betrays him. "It's on your list, isn't it? To call her, to stop pretending that friendship isn't another thing you've let slip away." The words hit like a slap. Alice's chest burns. "You don't get to say that. Why not?" He leans forward, eyes sharp. "You make a list to change your life, but you're still running from the hardest part of it. You still hide. From her, from your work, from me." Alice rises, fury flooding her. "And you? You're one to talk about hiding? You act like this marina of yours is a chain you can't break, but really, it's just an excuse. You're terrified of wanting something more, of leaving the shore you've tied yourself to." His face twists, hurt flashing. "That marina is my family, Alice. It's my life." "It's your cage," she shoots back. The words are out before she can stop them. Silence slams between them. The lantern flickers. Outside, Lightning scratches across the sky, and a long, low roll of thunder follows, shaking the cottage frame. Charlie's shoulders rise and fall, like he's holding back words that might ruin everything. Finally, his voice breaks through, rough. Do you know what it was like? Those summers after you left? I thought every boat I fixed, every dock I built, it was all just waiting for you to come back. And when you didn't, I told myself I was a fool. I told myself to stop believing. His eyes lift to hers, full of pain. And now you're here, and I don't know if I can trust that you won't leave again. Alice's throat tightens. She wants to reach for him, to bridge the distance, but fear holds her still. Maybe I will leave. Maybe that's what people do. Her voice cracks, betraying the ache beneath the anger. But maybe you're so afraid of losing that you never let yourself win. The storm answers. Wind rattling the windows, rain beginning to pelt the roof. Charlie stands abruptly, the chair scraping. He looks at her one last time, something breaking open in his eyes. Maybe we're both still the same kids, pretending we can handle grown-up hearts. And then he's gone, out into the storm, down the path toward the boathouses, the door banging shut behind him. Alice stands frozen in the echo of his words, chest hollow, tears stinging but refusing to fall. The lantern flame gutters, shadows swelling in its wake. She presses the crumpled list against her chest. But it feels flimsy now, like paper can't hold the weight of everything unraveling. Upstairs, Nan shifts in her sleep, murmuring softly, unaware of the storm tearing through the rooms below. Alice sinks into the chair he left, heart pounding in time with the thunder. The golden summer she thought was saving her suddenly feels fragile, fractured, slipping through her hands like rainwater. And she doesn't know if it can be pieced back together, or if it was always meant to break. Morning arrives, rinsed clean. The storm has taken its noise with it, leaving the lake the color of pewter and pearl, a surface so calm it looks like it's listening. Alice wakes with the ache of the argument still pressed into her ribs. The chair on the porch remembers the shape of where Charlie sat last night. The door remembers the bang. She brews coffee, sets Nan's mug by the window, and watches sunlight work its way down the pines, as if it's relearning where everything goes. Nan lifts the mug, the steam clouding her glasses. You going to keep carrying that or set it down? She asks, not unkindly. I don't know how, Alice admits. Nan nods, as if that's an answer she respects. Then try starting with something smaller. She nudges the field guide on the sill with her brace-wrapped wrist. Call your friend. The list burns in Alice's pocket. She takes her phone to the end of the dock, where the boards still smell like rain, and dials a number she once knew as well as her own name. It rings long enough for her to brace for voicemail, and then Lila's voice, wary, surprised, then softening like a shoreline when the tide turns. The apology arrives, halting at first, then rushes as if the words had been cued for years. I'm sorry I pulled away when I got scared. I'm sorry I made the photograph carry what I wouldn't say. On the other end, there's a breath and then laughter that sounds like it's been trying to get out for too long. You always did wait for good light, Lila says. And in that joke is the forgiveness Alice didn't know how much she needed. They promise more calls, real ones, not pretend. Alice hangs up feeling like two ribs have moved farther apart to make room. She lifts the disposable camera and takes a picture of the empty chair on the porch beside Nan, then lowers it, dissatisfied. The frame lies. It pretends solitude. What's true is the hand around the mug, the wrinkle at the corner of Nan's eye, the outline of courage around her fragility. Alice goes back into the cottage, digs in the blue shoebox, and pulls out the Minolta. The leather is more torn than she remembered. The weight is perfect. In the kitchen drawer is a forgotten roll of film. Expiration date, some summers ago. She feeds it into the camera with fingers that remember the dance. Leader into the slot. Crank until the numbers align. The satisfying resistance of readiness. She lifts the viewfinder, sighs when the world reduces to a rectangle, and breathes. Really breathes. Click. Nan's hand around the mug. The steam caught like stitching in sunlight. Click. The page of the list, weighted by a chipped mug. The smudged ink of promises kept and not yet kept. Better, Nan says from the rocker without looking, because she has always known the sound of Alice taking a picture that tells the truth. Alice walks the path toward the boathouses, the sun catching on last night's beads of water in the pine needles, as if every tree has been jeweled for a ceremony. Her stomach knots tighter with each step. When she reaches the sheds, Charlie is there, sleeves shoved up. The yellow boat on the trailer, a coil of rope over his shoulder. He looks like the storm. Scrubbed, purposeful, lit from within by things he won't say unless asked. I check the moorings, he says, before she can speak. When the wind comes straight down the bay like that, the outer ones take a beating. A half shrug. I needed to fix something. I needed to break something, Alice says. And that wins a small, involuntary smile from him. They stand for a minute in the industrious quiet of the marina. Gulls bickering like old men, a halyard tapping rhythm on a mast, the lake pretending innocence. Finally, Alice begins, words careful, like stepping stones. I called Lila. His gaze snaps to her, surprise then relief. Yeah? Yeah. She inhales. You were right. I hide. From the hardest things. I didn't want our fight to be an excuse to do it again. The air tastes of cut cedar and gasoline and the iron bite of honesty. About last night, I'm sorry, your work isn't a cage. It's a way you love. I was scared. And I wanted company in my fear. Charlie looks down at his hands, flexes his fingers, as if finding new fit. I'm sorry, too. I use the marina like a wall. Easier to say, I'm needed, than I'm afraid. He looks up. The admission has scraped him honest. I'm terrified of wanting you and losing you. I'm terrified of you choosing something beautiful that isn't me. And of me choosing something useful that isn't you. She steps closer, the gravel shifting like a hush. Maybe we stop choosing like it's a door you either shut or walk through forever. She lifts the Minolta between them, shows the small numbers in the window, the humbly finite roll of film. We could try choosing like this, one frame at a time. No pretending the light will hold if it won't, but letting it if it does. His exhale carries a laugh and a tremor. That sounds like the kind of math I can do. They don't kiss yet. Not because they don't want to, but because the shape of what they're making asks for other vows first. Practicals even. Things that look small, but aren't. He says he can take one day off a week, even in high season, if he plans and trusts the younger dock hands. She says she can stretch her stay, shoot a small series here, without making the lake perform nostalgia, then return to the city to finish a project with the promise to come back before the bay ice is over. They say the thing that makes it real. We don't disappear when afraid. We say it out loud. We pick up the phone. Let's test it, Charlie says, and there's the grin again, repaired but still true. Your list. What else is on it? She pulls the page out, smoothing the wrinkles as if apologizing to paper. Take 2 pictures that don't pretend. She lifts the minolta. Stand there. He does, but not like a posed boy. Not like the photograph would once have required. He stands the way he is. Shirt damp from boat work, hair damp from the air, eyes not trying to be anything. She frames him with the open door of the boathouse behind, the laker's suggestion over his shoulder, his hands loose, unarmed. Click. She doesn't need to look to know it's one of them. The second picture finds itself when he steps toward her without being told and rests his palm flat over the list she's holding, as if to help it stop shaking. His fingers touch ink and the back of her hand. Click. They walk back together, uncoiling the unfinished conversation between them, letting it run beside their legs like a friendly dog. At the cottage, Nan pretends to be scandalized by their lateness, then orders Charlie to fix the screen latch he swore he'd fix last week, a task he accepts with mock solemnity and swift competence. The 3 of them eat tomatoes and toast in the shade. Nan tells a story about a boy she loved once who went to sea because that's what his family asked, and how she didn't marry him because loving isn't always the same as living. But the loving wasn't a waste, she says, eyes on the water. It taught me to live the life I actually had, so I could recognize joy when it walked up the path years later, wearing worse shoes. Grand wisdom, Charlie says, and Nan swats him with her napkin. As afternoon deepens, Alice takes Nan outside and photographs her reading, the light freckling the page through the maple leaves. She photographs their hands together on the arm of the chair. Knuckles and veins and moon half scars like a family map. She photographs the clothesline with 3 towels, one with a rip where a branch once caught it, one brand new and unnervingly white, one sun-bleached almost to memory. She doesn't have to pretend in any of them. The truth is gorgeous by itself. At dusk, they launch the tinny. Nan sits in the bow, queen of the small kingdom, one hand skimming the water, as if the lake has been waiting all day for that permission. They idle toward the middle, where the gold lies thickest. Charlie kills the engine. The silence is the kind that feels chosen. Alice pulls the minolta to her eye and then lowers it. Some things require a lens, some things require skin. Swim? She asks, and Nan laughs like she's accepted an irresistible dare. They slip in, the water warm at the surface and cool where it matters. Alice floats on her back and stares at the sky, which has become a story about fire learning to be gentle. She feels Charlie's elbow bump hers. the ridiculous holiness of it. She feels Nan stroking a lazy circle with her hand, the tether of that motion stretching across decades, across everything. When they climb back in, laughing and dripping, Alice checks the list one last time. Only one blank line remains. She picks up the pencil. "See clearly," she writes, and feels the words slide into place like a dock plank finally hammered flush. She doesn't burn the list. She tucks it into the field guide, a pressed leaf for a future August. That night, while Nan dozes, she and Charlie stand on the porch and look where the dark keeps the far shore, and the porch lights mark what people choose to glow. He reaches for her, and this time they do kiss. A quiet thing that feels like placing a stone on a cairn. Not a claim, but a marker. We were here. We made this choice. Others can find their way by it. When they part, the silence around them is full and satisfied. In the morning, she will drive to town and ask the drugstore to develop the expired roll. Will wait with the electric patience of a kid in the 90s. Will pin the contact sheet to the cabin wall with clothespins and circle 2 frames in pencil. She will title the series in her head, "What Water Remembers," and see how it might grow beyond this season without telling lies. He will circle a date on the calendar at the marina when he'll drive south in November, off-season, to see a show that may or may not happen, to keep a promise either way. For now, the loons call and the lake answers, the two of them conversing like old friends. Nan turns a page. The porch bulb hums. A yellow hull sleeps like a bright thought in the boathouse. The night gathers them in and doesn't ask for guarantees, only for presence. Alice slips the camera strap around her neck and feels it settle there, the way a name settles when you start using it correctly again. The summer is not endless. It never was. But it is enough. She can see that now, the edges, the center, the hand reaching for hers, and not letting go at the first sound of thunder. She lifts the Minolta one last time and frames the table lamps warm square on the grass, the path between porch and dock, their shadows touching in the middle. Click. The picture doesn't pretend. It doesn't promise. It witnesses. The lake, patient as a heartbeat, keeps what they give it and glitters. Just once, like it approves, 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 like